everyone, we're looking at the Chainlink weekly candlestick chart with some Wyckoff text. Like the orange ones are basically the accumulation cycle. We can see it's still tentative at the moment. However, looking at the past accumulation cycle, especially the one in 2024, it's not too far from those levels. However, if you're new to this, the selling climax doesn't necessarily mean this SC over here. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the lowest point in the accumulation cycle. If you have watched my other sessions, I've explained this, and here is another example. The SC is right over here, and there can be a lot more tests that's around or even lower than the selling climax level. So don't be overly optimistic about is it the time to buy the dip. If your financial advisor tells you it may be time, I would say it's not too bad a time. If this is really an accumulation cycle and the price currently is not too far from the selling climax, it's only if it really drops from here, right? It's less than 20%. If your risk appetite can handle that, then obviously it's fine. Volume perspective is pretty much flat overall, even though there are some pretty significant price movements over the past 2 months. So from April's price all the way to May's, that's roughly 50% rise. So if somebody are into the Fibonacci percentages, they say, oh, it has risen 50%. It's natural that it comes down. That stories, that kind of Fibonacci theory still hold true over here. There's no contradiction. And then if we go down to the daily, well, this blue line can go away. Basically, that's the upward trend that I've drawn last week or even the week before, and May 29th essentially closed lower than this line, and that basically has broken the upward trend, and now we are in the downward trend. So let's draw a box instead so you can clearly see the boundaries. So I'm zooming in so people watching on mobile phone or smaller screens would be easier to tell what they're looking at or what I'm talking about. So if we look at a candlestick chart, if you're new to this is probably less easy to see, but if I change it to a line chart, now it becomes clearer. So what we are trying to get to is the tips of the ups and downs. So basically we can see, get closer to the top of the blue box, this the bottom, and then there's multiple tips, 2 ups, 2 downs. All these 4 tips are basically bound within this box. So currently, even though it seems if we just look at these few days, it seems it's going sideways, it's still well within this blue box and edging towards this top edge of the box. And once we get to then, that's likely the coming weekend. Interestingly, it's also when the G7 summit is going to take place. We will be able to see if good news comes out. Obviously, the price will break outside of the box and test the top edge, first the yellow line at around $15 or $14.90, and then $16, the white line, before it probably tests the even higher level at around $19. So that's the positive scenario. the negative scenario would be after reaching this edge around June 13, 14 or 15, bad news came out. It comes down to test this yellow support line at around $12.30. If it doesn't hold, obviously the next will be the bottom edge of this blue box, that's around $11.50. And how further low, you may ask? We can take reference of what happened in early April, that's around $11. Further bad news, obviously there are even more levels, but I'm not going to cover that now. It seems like that would be too drastic, and I'll still keep it at the yellow line around $12.40 as the first stop from like a weekly perspective. Daily, obviously we have already touched on the blue downward trend box levels. So that's all for Chainlink. I'll move on to Avalanche next. See you there.